Hi, Kathryn here with Handmade by Circle Art Design. Well, autumn is in the air, and let's make an autumn mix embellished bracelet. I love this Loom Work bracelet. Isn't that beautiful? It is so stunning. We're going to do matching earrings to go with this. It takes a little longer than most projects, but it's well worth the time and the effort. So let's turn our eyes to the mat. Well, as I said, autumn is in the air, and I am simply grateful for the coming of autumn soon in Texas. We've had a few nice days, and it's a little cooler than it was in the middle of summer, and for that, I am truly simply grateful. But along with that comes my desire to work in the front and backyard. And I'm also simply grateful for that because the last week I have sat outside with my coffee and my time with the Lord on my front porch. And today I spent my time with my Lord on the back porch. What a peaceful, calm, restful time that is. And I have to say, from June to the end of August and sometimes into September, it is too hot, even in the mornings, for me to sit out on the back porch. But I watched the squirrels and the birds this morning. I listened to the music of nature, and I am truly simply grateful for that. How about you? What are you simply grateful for today? I know there's something. God bless. All right. Let's turn our eyes to the mat. So we're going to start out with this 11-0 seed bead. This is from Stash. These are Tohos. It's a mix that has a steel gray blue, a beautiful, almost a plum color, and then this lovely metallic gold. I love this mix. I've used it for several things. Next up is the glass bead mix in the Autumn Hearth, where we got the title for our bracelet, which is an autumn mix. And this too has some light blues, the grays, that not really a plum, but more of a berry maybe, and maybe holly berries even, and it is just perfect for fall. So to begin this bracelet, we need to do the loom work first. Now I'm using a jewel for this. I have another loom that I use a lot of times, but there's something on that one at the moment. And so we're going to go ahead and do this jewel loom. The book inside there shows you exactly how to wrap the loom. It has really good pictures in it. As you can see, it shows you how to put the rod in the center. You put the rod in the center before you do your wrap, and it shows you to tie it off on the side and then come down through that button and go ahead and start to wrap it. And as I said, it is very self-explanatory, so I'm not going to show you that part. First of all, I drop the thread a lot when I'm doing this. I went, yeah, I do so much editing on this, you wouldn't be able to see it anyway. Now, this is a 7 bead count is what I'm going to do for this bracelet. And I wrap the whole thing. Yes, of course you have to wrap the whole thing, but I do not use the whole thing. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you want 7 spaces. That means you will have one more cord than you have beads that you're going to put on there. I am using every one of them because I'm using 11-0s. I'm not skipping any. And I'm going to use this fire line. This is in a 6-pound. I'm using the black for this because we're using those deep, rich colors. And I really love the fire line. I have tried for a lot of years to find one that I really, really love. And I think this is the one I will settle on. Now, Wildfire, I have not used that one, and so I will not rule it out. But I absolutely love the fire line. All right, I have cut a nice big length of this off, and we are going to tie this on to our loom. At first I tried this. I do not know why I tried to use that threader, but I did, and I could not get it to go through. And to be real honest, this needle and thread came with this jewel loom, and this is a wonderful needle. I really enjoyed using it. I did go to my big eye needle, that needle that split all the way down whenever I had to do some tying off, but for the most part I use this. It has a nice sturdiness to it, and it is really, really nice. All right, so the first thing you do is you go to the outside of your non-dominant hand. I know, for me, that's my left, and I always do it backwards. Then you want to take the thread and put it through the little space and do a surgeon's knot. That's looping over twice, going ahead very carefully tying it down. You don't want this thing to knot up before you get it onto that. And yes, your knot is going to slide around, but after you've done a few rows, it won't slide around anymore. Then I'm doing a second surgeon's knot because, you know, I'm just that way. One is probably enough, but I always do two. I also leave a tail on it so I can go ahead and put that through whenever I'm finishing up, and I don't have to cut it right at that knot. And here I am. This is where I say, oh, what was I thinking? Now, if I was using a different thread, I would have gone ahead and used the threader because I love threaders. I wear bifocals and I still have to have magnifiers, so threaders are great. But I ended up not using the threader. What I ended up doing is I just took it off. Once I got it on, I realized I could not pull it through, and I'll show you that in just a second. Yeah, here it goes. I was afraid I was going to break the threader because that, and it really isn't necessary. If you're using that 6-pound fire line, it will go through and it's nice and stiff right on its own. And that's what I did. I just took it off, put it to one side, and put it on with my magnifiers so I could see. And now we're ready to begin. So I'm going to make this a random pattern bracelet. And random is not something I do well. So I'm just running my needle through, and whichever catches, that's the one that's going on. And so I'm counting to make sure I have 7. And in the first part of this, I am truly counting each little one that I put on my thread because it's the way I first learned. But I'll show you a trick later on it's a lot easier. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to count our 7, just scooping one at a time, trying not to pick it out so you don't have a consistent pattern, because you want this to be a random pattern. I love this. Then you bring it underneath, push it up so you have one in each space. Now you should be on your dominant hand, and you're going to go back through those beads, making sure that you see the needle go between each bead. And the reason that you do that is if it is going between each bead, it is laying over your cording that you have on your loom. And if you don't see the needle, then you've probably not caught that bead. Once you pull it through, pull it just slightly taut, then go back to putting on your 7 beads, just like that. Again, trying to be random. If you're like me, it's hard. Count out your 7 beads, and then going underneath, you're going to take the the thread to the other side, whichever is your dominant side. Mine is left. Then you're going to go ahead and space those beads through each of your spaces. Push them up, and then again, coming from underneath. Oh, my bead fell off. Okay, get that back on there. And coming from underneath, you're going to go back up over the top, looping around that outside cord, and then making sure that the needle shows through each space. Ooh, I yanked too hard. You're going to go ahead and pull it through and pull it taut. Just like that. Now, at this time, you want to make sure that your lines are straight, because like I said in the beginning, these beads are going to be able to move around a little bit. They won't by the end, but for right now, they will move around a little bit, and you don't want to do that. All right, again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just running it through, and I am going ahead and counting as I go through, so I make sure I have the right number. I'm going to go underneath. Again, I am going to push up with my finger, making sure that the beads pop up through the holes, then going looping around the bottom. We're going to make sure that that needle comes up between, we can see it between each bead. That way we've captured it, because the go looping underneath, popping up, and then going across, your cross threads are what are catching your beads. Now, isn't that a pretty random pattern? I just love this, and these colors are amazing. I'm going to need to make it all the way to 7, maybe just a little under 7, because I want a 7 1/4 bracelet, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, here we go. So I am about halfway through my bracelet here, but I wanted to show you something different. So remember, I told you there was a slightly easier way to do this, and this is what I do. If you have a little cup you can put your beads in, that's great. I learned it to pile them on, and so that's what I do. And now we're just going to scoop. I'm not going to count. I'm just going to pull it through the little pile that I've made until it looks like I have got enough on there. That way I am not controlling anything. Now, do you see that right there? Counting it out. Okay. And I counted the 7 and I took it off. But there's an even easier way to do it. But let's go ahead and do it this way. I'm showing you these 3 ways, and you can decide which is easiest for you. When you count out each bead, and you're looking at it, I don't care how careful you are, you're not going to be random. You're going to say, oh wait, I had gold on that side then. Maybe I knew 2 golds on the other side, or vice versa. But again, each time I'm kind of pulling the pile up, and I'm just scooping that needle across and letting it catch what it wants to catch. This is the way I do my random patterns. That means that each one of these random pattern bracelets will be different from the other, even if you're doing the same color. Now, again, as I said, you can count this and take off your extra beads. And that's great. And again, this way is faster than the way we started, because you're not trying to put each individual bead on that needle. And it's just a matter of scooping. And I really love that. I learned that from a lady whenever I was very young, and she said, oh, it's going to take you forever to bead if you do it that way. And I thought, well, what are you going to do? I mean, you only have so many spots. But she showed me the scooping method, and I thought, okay. But she also showed me that I didn't have to be as meticulous about how many of these beads I am putting on my needle. And I thought, well, you've got 15 beads on there and you only need 7 or 9. So what are you going to do with that? So this is what you do with that. We're going down around, just like we would on any other time. We're going to pop all of those on just where we need them, but you see I have more on my needle than I need. I have that 3. I'm going to snug those right up, and I'm going to run my needle right through the extras, just like that. And then I'm going to make sure that I get where each one of, and see now they're back on my needle. And so now I'm going to make sure that I get my needle to go and show through the ones that are on there. And when I pull this through, watch, there they go. And now I'm not counting. Now I'm just scooping, and then I'm getting them all in the little space, and then I'm running my needle back through everything I had put on the thread, and the ones that I don't need just fall back down to where the pile needs to be. And it took me less than half the time to finish the other half of this bracelet than it did to do the other 2 methods. So if you want truly a random pattern, and I have a nice mix of the golds and the silver, the golds and the gray blues and that beautiful plum. And that is all I'm doing. All right, I have reached the end, and I don't have enough of my string left to tie this off, and I am determined I'm going to make my little knot here, but that is not going to happen. You will watch it, it's going to jump right off my needle. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my split needle, that big eye needle right there, and I'm going to go ahead and put this teeny bit of thread I have back on here. The thing about the big eye needles is it's pointy at both ends, so you can go ahead and put your thread on and then move it down to where you need it to be and make your knot. Once I have made my knot, I'm going to go through back towards the center of the one that I have just done, and then I'll do that again, and then I'll tie it off, and I'll be ready to add some more thread. All right, let's move on. I'm ready to add thread here. I've cut off another long piece. What I've done here is I've moved 3 back, and I'm running the cording itself, that Firefox, I'm adding it up and down just like that, and don't worry that they're moving, I'll push them back. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move it all the way right there. And then let's see, have I got that? Making sure that I didn't pull the tail all the way out, which I have done before. I'm going to go back ahead and gently rock this, because now I've got a lot of thread through that second one that I had done. So I've gone through 3, I've gone back up through the second one. Now I'm going to tie a knot. So you go down 3, you go back down 2, you go down 1, you go back down 2, and you tie a knot between 1 and 2. And then I'm going ahead and I am putting it through my last one so that I end up on my non-dominant side, because I'm going to be doing a little thread weaving. When you come out of that, you're going to go around the thread just like you would with your beads, and then you're going to do an in and out motion over the top, under the top, over the top, under the top, till you've got it woven all the way across. Now then, you should end up on the top of your, for this one anyway, of your cording. So go ahead and go under so that it catches, and do an under over till you get to the other side, and you should be again on the top. Each time you go through this, you're going to end up on the top of your cording, and you're going to go in and out, in and out, in and out till you get your thread woven all the way to the top of the other side. Now, what are you doing here? You are weaving, quote, material that you're going to be using to finish off this bracelet. This is the way I learned to finish off bracelets. I don't know if it's that way for everybody, but do you see the little material? So in sewing, you would call this the selvage, and we are putting a selvage on this bracelet. All right, I'll meet you when I get this long enough. But before we move on, would you please like and comment for this video? And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do so and click the notification button so that you know when I put up new content. And one more thing, if you could share this video, thank you. That would be amazing. All right, let's move on. All right, we have finished up. I've tied it off. I'm going to use this Gorilla Glue and the clear. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take this little piece of wire I have. I'm going to add, well, first I'm going to mash the part that has gotten too dry out of the tip. And I'm going to go ahead and put some on my little wire, and that selvage that we have made, oh, come on, you can come out. The selvage that we've made, and that may still be too dry. I need to wipe that off. We're going to put Gorilla Glue on the top and bottom of that selvage. Now, the reason I do this is because the ends that I use for my bracelets are called ribbon ends, and they have little teeth on them. Now, if I had some that didn't have little teeth, then maybe I wouldn't have to do this, but I don't know. I've only seen them. I've only heard of them. I tried the tubes one time. I'm not very good with the tubes. It's not something that I learned, and with practice I could learn how to do it. I always get my selvage too long, and then you're in trouble. But I am really saturating this selvage with that Gorilla Glue. And then once I get that on there, I will flip it over just like this, and I'm going to do the same thing to the back. And again, the reason that I'm doing this is because of the ending I use to finish off my bracelet. If I put the ribbon ending on my bracelet without building up a selvage, what will happen is I will cut the threads, and I have done that before, and I wanted to cry when I did that. In fact, I've recently worked on a bracelet that I have been repairing so that I can show you how you repair a bracelet when you do something like that. But the next thing I'm doing is I'm gently tapping that Gorilla Glue down on the sides, on the bottom and top, and then I'm going to let it dry overnight, and we will start with something new. Okay, let's do a little embellishing. So I've let this dry overnight, both sides. I'm going to the center of my bracelet, which is right about there. And I always do that wrong. You're going to start from the top. You're going to go down, and again, you're going to have a slight tail. And then you're going to go the next row over and go back up into that space, just like that. And then you're going to do another knot for this. Let's pull this all the way down. I've gotten quite a bit of thread here, and what we're going to do now is we're going to do another one of those little surgeon knots where you go through the loop twice. Well, let's go through one more time, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull this down. Now, if you get to looking at my nails, you're going to notice that they get progressively worse if we do this, because I worked on this bracelet over several days. And in between that, I did yard work, and I prepared my house for a home group. And so I went, yeah, I changed the color, except then my nails are going to change right in the middle of this. So sorry about that. I will try to make sure my nails get done before I do the next video session. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to go back into the needle that came with this loom. And I'll tell you why. I like my big eye needles, but even though they're pointed on both sides, it's not a sharp point. And I have clipped by accident, because I wasn't paying attention, I didn't have my magnifiers on, and I've clipped one of my threads and made it fray. I didn't make it break, but it made a weak spot in it. And so what I'm doing is I am pulling that through, and once I get that through, I'm leaving a little tail, and I clip that tail off. You're not going to see any of this. It's going to be completely covered with the embellishment. This is the Autumn mix, that Autumn Hearth mix from the September Bargain Bead Box. And I am going to start with one of these beautiful red, isn't that beautiful? A rondelle, or I would call it a donut bead. I am using the same mix that I did the bracelet with, so that there is some consistency. The Autumn Hearth mix is not as shiny as things that I like, but for this bracelet, it is amazing. But I wanted to make sure that it had a little bit of sorry about that, a little bit of shine to it. And I also wanted to make sure that it matched with this beautiful mix that I used for the bracelet design itself. Now, do you have to embellish? Absolutely not. Remember, when you're doing a mix like this and you're doing a truly random mix pattern with this mix, each bracelet is going to be different, and it's beautiful just the way it is. But I love embellishing these bracelets. And so I am adding randomly just the beads. And what you do is you put your bead on first, then you put on one of the 11-ohs. You skip the 11-oh because that's going to be your stopper bead. And then you go back down through the bead that you just put on the beading thread. So then once you do that, you go down through the bottom and then you come back up to the top. Now again, I am just randomly picking the beads, and I'm going to, and I did this one backwards. I put the 11-oh first, and I'm going to have to pull this. I'll let you see what happens whenever you don't do this. All right. So this one, I am going to go ahead, since I saw that I'm being lazy, I won't lie. And I'm going to put it on its side. Actually, at first, I thought that maybe the side of this little yellow bead was the prettier piece. But as I built this bracelet up, I discovered that it was just as pretty if I put only one seed bead and it lay flat up against the bracelet, and instead of putting two and rolling it over on its side. Okay, so this is the trick for this bracelet. I am not going to sit here and do the whole bracelet because that would make this video really long. I can show you what I've done, and truly this is different from my other bracelets because I usually do a lot of loop embellishment, but I'm not going to do that. I'm also not worrying about all the spaces being filled in. I want some of the bracelet to show. So this is just a simple beaded bracelet with a stopper bead, the beaded look with a stopper bead. Choose your beads randomly. Put your bead on first, then your 11-oh, and then go skip the 11-oh and use it as your stopper, and go back through your regular bead. And you're going to just do this until you get half of the bracelet done on one side. I am using that donut as my center. It's not a focal bead because the whole thing is going to be the focal, but I'm keeping my eye on where that donut is, and that's driving me crazy. I could wait and burn it off at the end, but it's driving me nuts. I'm sorry. You can tell that by this point, I'm going, oh, I just want this to work. And it does. It's beautiful. Sometimes I get a little crazy because I know I'm trying to be on a schedule, and our life has gotten really busy all of a sudden. I mean, just amazingly busy. And so I'm always going, oh, I'm taking too long. But that's crazy, because that's not why God gave us the gift of creating. He gave us the gift of creating that we might enjoy or receive pleasure from what we create, and in turn give pleasure to others when we give it away or we sell it or whatever the Lord leads you to do with it. And so take your time. I had to remind myself of that. Take my time, reconsider your schedule. If something is making you that crazy, then you need to have more time to just sit and relax and do something you enjoy. And so that is what I'm doing here. Now, as I said, I'm not going to show you all of this because it is just too long. But I'm going to bead 2/3 of the way down this bracelet, leaving space so that you can see the work underneath. And when I say 2/3, that means I'm going to do 1/3 from the center and 1/3 from the center. And I'm not putting beads on the back at my wrist. So when I get that finished, I will show you what my finished product look like, because I am truly not trying to do mirror images like I normally do. I am just filling in with these beautiful autumn colors, and they are gorgeous. So I will see you in a moment. So I wanted to step in here just a moment and show you I have beaded the center, and I've gone down on the upper side right there of this bracelet, and then I'm going to fill in that one, and this bracelet will be ready to go. And if you will notice, I'm sorry that I pulled it out a little bit, but I'm not feeling all the way to the edges except in the very center of the bracelet. So I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to do this one, and I will show you the finished product. I did down this bracelet on both sides, and as you can see, I have left about 1.5 to 2 inches on both sides, and I am ready to cut this off of the loom. Now I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to cut as far down as I can, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie little knots. And again, do you have to tie these little knots? I've had friends tell me, oh no, they don't tie little knots. But when I learned you put on the glue and you tie the little knots. And so that's what I'm going to do. You know, whenever you learn something when you're young and then you discover that other people are doing it different ways, you go, well, can I skip all those? But I have great respect for the lady who taught me all of this. And so, yeah, I do all the steps she did. I tie the little knots, I put on the glue, I make the selvage, and then I put my ends on. And I still will clip it every now and then and have to figure out how I'm going to save this work. Because, you know, when you put hours and hours in on something like this, and then you do something sad to it, it kind of breaks your heart. But I'm doing surgeon knots. I'm taking every 2 cords and I'm cutting off a surgeon's knot. And these scissors may have to be retired. I'm really having trouble cutting with these. And they're relatively new scissors, and I've only used them on thread. Did your parents tell you, or your mother, or whoever taught you to sew or work, never use your scissors your sewing scissors for anything but material and thread. Well, I remember that from my grandmother, from my mother, from my aunt, and from the dear lady who taught this to me. And so I'm very careful, but I'm still having trouble with these. They came in a set with needles, and I don't think they're very good scissors, but I just keep plugging along. All right, so I've almost got these done, and I have to do this on the other side as well. And when I get it finished on the other side, then I will show you the next step. So I get my ribbon endings from off of Amazon. It comes in 3 sizes. I am using the middle size. I'm being very careful to get that right up to the bead without going onto the bead, because I want the little teeth to go into the glue and not into my bead, and cut that. And so I mash it down with my nylon pliers, trying to make sure that it's really in there. And once it is, I'll go ahead and go to the side, and I'll crimp down each of the sides of this ribbon. And again, you want it to crimp so that it's snug, but you do not want to mash it flat, because you want it to be in the glue on the selvage. Now then, isn't that pretty? I've done both of them, and this is what this bracelet, come on, put your hand down. Oh, I'm going crazy. And that's what that finished product looks like. Now you can go ahead and bead this all the way to the, embellish it all the way to the end, but I like my wrist to lie flat whenever I'm working. I do a lot of handwork, a lot of writing, and I do not like to have things that bother me. That's just the way it is. All right, we're going to go ahead and open up a jump ring, and I get bothered easily if it's mashing my wrist. We're going to go ahead and put the jump ring on, and now I'm going to use one of these little snap clasps. I love these for my bracelets because I am one that I always have to have somebody put my bracelet on for me. I've seen ladies on YouTube who can put their own lobster claw clasp bracelets on. And I have tried that, and I chase it around my wrist and pick it up off the floor, and then I go find my husband or my daughter or whoever happens to be in the house and go, would you please put this on for me? And then the next part is trying to get it off if you're the only one in the house. I've done that on Sunday afternoons as well, and I have laid down for a nap with my bracelet on because I couldn't get it off. So if the bracelet is for me and I'm not giving it away or selling it, I put on a snap, or I put on a magnetic. Now when you're doing that, on one side you want the little button part that has a little round knob. You want that to look like it's on backwards, because that's going to fit in to the other side. Then you want right side up to be the finished part on the other end. That way you will have a finished part up against your wrist and a finished part for people to see. So again, when you're doing this, button the little knob side, turn it around where it looks backwards, where the knob is up and it has the unfinished part on. If the knob is down, it's not correct. And then go ahead, open your jump ring between 2 chain nose pliers and put the other side to the finished part. All right, let's get this out of the way, and let me go ahead and put this on and get it closed up just like that. And that's really what it does. It just snaps. It's a little snap button, and I love it. It is so pretty. And this is the finished piece. Now, isn't that lovely? All right, let me show you just a little bit about this, and then we will move on to the other part. I thought you might, after we put in hours of work on this, I thought you might like to see the finished piece. Now, it doesn't lay particularly pretty on my mat, but it's gorgeous. Now, look at that beadwork on the loom the Loom Work Bracelet all by itself. Let's get this off. We're going to take this, we're going to get it right here, and I'm going to just snap that little sucker right on. There you go. Oh, it looks so funny whenever I speed it up for you. Now, isn't that pretty? I just love it. My hands, my wrist, everything shakes. But it's just really beautiful. Now, for me, if I was doing this again, now that I know how it's going to lay, isn't that pretty? I would take and use a slightly smaller clasp. I might even use one of my small magnetic clasps just to take up about 1/4 of an inch on this bracelet. But it is just so pretty. I love this. Autumn Hearth. Again, this was from the September Bargain Bead Box. But I'm betting that you have a bead soup of your own that you can make this beautiful bracelet with. You say, well, I don't have the mix. You can make that yourself as well. All right, let's move on to the earrings. Okay, we have come to the more simple part. Now I'm using everything that I used plus these 2 inch head pin jump rings. I'm putting these in the gold. If you'll see the little section at the top, I have set some beads that are the same. I'm starting out with the donut to make this. This will be 3 different dangles that will come off that jump ring. Then I am just picking some random things out that I see there is at least enough color in to do both earrings, because you do not want your earrings, well, at least I don't. I want my earrings to look at least similar because they are right up against my face. So what I'm doing is I am adding a 11/0 from the mix that we used, and I am not being careful with that. And for the first one, I put on 3 beads, and then I am adding my 11/0s at the top. The next one will be the longest of the group, at least I think that's the one I'm doing next. And with that one, no, I'm sorry, it's going to be the other short one. So I have added a round bead in the browns, and that's one of the things about this mix. It has yellows, it has the rose color that you see when the flowers begin to fade. It has that blue gray of the autumn skies, and just the current, that was what I was trying to remember. That bead, that red, looks like currants. And then it just has all the lovely colors you see in the fall. Now I am checking this, okay, move that back, because I am not using the same size bead or shape bead. So I have to make sure that the beads on the drop on the dangle, or at least the same length. And this is that lovely currant. So this will be the longest. And I have put that beautiful red currant that was in my mix. I do not know if everybody's mix was the same, but these were the beads that were in my mix. And then I have just a couple of the, it's a white, and it is, I don't know. It's not like the ceramic white that I have, but it's shiny and it's real pretty. So again, the thing that I'm doing between each one is I'm putting the 11/0s in between each one of these beads. Now for my middle one, I'm going to make it extra long. And so I am adding extra beads, and then I will add more of the seed beads for this, because I really want to get that look of the under bracelet as well as the embellishment on this bracelet. And so that's why I stop and I put so many of the seed beads on, because I really want it to be a taste of everything that is in this lovely bracelet. Okay, let's put this where I think the beads are going to go, and it's going to look something similar to that. Now, once I start it, I'll have to decide, am I adding more? And I think I am. I'm going to go ahead and add a few more of the 11 O's to it, because once I set it on the mat, I realized I really needed just a little more length, and I could have put something else on it, another one of the larger beads. But as I said, I really want to get that look of the bracelet that holds this all together. I don't know what I'm doing, waving it around. I know, I was looking in my camera and I was going, where is my hand? All right, so I went ahead and used my looper. You bring it across when you do that, mash the handles, it makes a loop, then go ahead and use your straight nose pliers, turn that loop down and finish closing it with your chain nose pliers, straight nose pliers, then chain nose pliers. And so again, I'm looking to see, and I really like that, so I'm checking to see how many beads I'm going to need to add to this one to make it the same length. Again, because it is a mix and we're not making everything the same, you're going to have to go ahead and check your links whenever you do these earrings. I only had to add one to that one. So I'm going ahead, I put it between the jaws, close it up, it makes a loop. Then I'm going to take my straight nose. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that loop comes all the way down so that it touches, and then I turn it over, put the tip right at the base of the loop and back it off a little bit so it sits right over the top, and then I'm going to close it down with my chain nose pliers and make sure that's really a good fit. Now, don't skip the step of making sure your loop sits right over the middle of your dangle, because if it tilts to the front, tilts to the side, if it's not right over the middle, and again, this one's harder, it won't go in the hole because I've put beads on it all the way up, but it still works the same way. I'm going to close this up, and if it doesn't go all the way over the middle, and that means your point where you've closed it is going to go over the middle, your dangle will sit slightly lopsided. That may not bother you, but it makes me slightly crazy. I say that a lot. I really am not a crazy person, although my daughter says I'm the only person she's ever seen that talks to everybody in line, including the people behind and in front of me that I don't know. But that's just the way I am. All right, now doesn't that make a pretty set? And we're going to go ahead and do the other. And then we will be ready to get these on our jump ring. So here they are. And I love these big, beautiful jump rings. They're plain because they're not the star of the show, but they're very substantial in their weight, and they're a beautiful color gold. And I bought these off of Amazon, and I got a whole little package of this size, and I love them. So we're going to start off with the one that, for this one, it has that flat, and then it has the currant bead in the middle, and then the brown. And I'm going to lay it out exactly this way because I like my earrings to be facing my face. Now, you always hear I want them to look forward, but if I have that brown bead on the outside of the left side of my face, then I want that brown bead on the outside on the right side of my face. And the only way I know to do this with any consistency, because I am not a person that can keep it in my brain long enough to get it through, and maybe that comes from talking all the time, but I have to lay it this way so I know which way my ear wire which side is going to be the front for each ear wire. Now I'm going to use for these some of these fish hooks. I'm going to take my my curved nose, I'm going to turn that loop to the front. And why am I turning it to the front? Because I want my earrings to face outward. I want, when people see me, I want them to see my earring facing them, not the side of my head. If you've grown up and that's the way you like to wear your earrings, there is not a thing wrong with that. But I grew up when clips were used just as much as, well, maybe even more, as the fish hooks, as your pierced earrings. And clips always faced the front. And so that's what I grew up with in my early years. So now I open my jump ring with the twist of one wrist. Do not twist both. Hold one steady, twist the other. I have decided which is the front, so I am putting the front of my earring in the front of my fish hook, and I put them touching each other just like you would material. Again, holding it between two of these, you twist one side. I'm going to go ahead and put the front, and then I'm looking at the front. It's on that side. I'm going to put the front of the ear wire touching the front of the earring, close that up, pick it up, and now I will have the brown bead on the outside of the left ear and the brown bead on the outside of the right ear. Even if I decide to keep these for myself and move them over to clips, I will still do that same trick. All right, let's look at the finished product. Now, aren't those lovely? I just had so much fun with this project. Whenever I looked at the hearth, whenever we got that Autumn Hearth out of the September Bargain Bead Box, I said, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing with this. And this makes such a beautiful pair. It's a gorgeous pairing. All right, let's look at some pictures. Thank you so very much for joining me today. I had a really good time. This is an amazing bracelet, and I won't, tell you that it's going to be quick, because it's not. But it is so beautiful when you're finished. I love working with embellished loom work bracelets. They are just gorgeous. And it's not something that you can just go out and buy in a shop. This is truly something special just for you. Well, may God bless you, and may He keep you safe the rest of this week, and I hope you have an amazing beading adventure of your own. Kathryn, Handmade by Circle Art Designs. God bless y'all. Happy beading!